Well, I've been really enjoying the talks about the holding environment over these past few weeks, and I hope that you have too. Each time we return to this topic, I hear something just a little bit new, whether it's a phrase or a new word to describe the quality of the holding environment, and I get a bit of a new perspective. And that lets me feel it more clearly, understand it more deeply. And I love that about these teachings in general. There are so many levels of learning and depths of understanding that we meet as we travel on this path. And it never stays static. Lori and Susan both spoke about the feeling of home. You know, after the stress and activity of being out and about in the world, arriving home can feel so good. There's a way you can let down and let go, and you can relax, letting your body melt into that favorite chair or couch. When you're at home, you can just totally let yourself be yourself. And I understand that. I can actually feel it in my body. And I hope that we each know a place where we can feel that way. And then last week, Bill came at the topic from a slightly different angle. And he spoke about how the holding environment is not a technique, it's not a tool, it's not formulaic, but it's a process that helps us gradually deepen into our own humanity. And I can understand and feel that in my body as well. What caught my attention the most about what he said was that he referred to the holding environment as a portal for our practice. And I had never heard that or thought about the holding environment in that way before. So when I first pondered it, what came up in my mind were a few children's books that included the idea of a portal through which a character could enter into new and different existence. When I looked it up online, I had no idea that there actually was a genre of writing called portal fantasies. And I think we're familiar with a lot of them, right? There was Alice in Wonderland. She fell into a rabbit hole, which was a portal to a fantasy world. There was Peter Pan, who went through a secret passage to Neverland. And one of my favorites was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, in which some children passed through a portal at the back of a closet to enter a new and wonderful, very alive world. So, how is the holding environment like that? The way I understand what Bill was saying is that the holding environment is a portal through which we can create a new way of being. So we experience less suffering, more peace and ease, and more clarity. The holding environment is the place itself from which we can deepen and grow so that our lives become transformed by the practice. Instead of thinking of the holding environment as something we set up at the beginning of our sit in order to get on to the good stuff or the more important stuff, I think we're beginning to understand that we never complete our work with a holding environment. That's why we return back to it in between our topics, always on the daily sit. We don't move on from it, but instead we return over and over again in our practice, and we deepen into it. It's not a technique or a tool. It's more a frame of mind, an attitude, a posture of attention that allows for everything that really welcomes all parts of ourselves with care and warmth. Truly care and warmth, not just saying it, but feeling it, a felt sense of that. And so, can we develop that kind of relationship with ourselves? The places we're hurt, embarrassed, ashamed, angry, frustrated, all of it. We want to learn to hold it all with care. Setting up our holding environment is a commitment, and we make it every time we sit. Actually, we make it multiple times within a sit. And our ability to sustain and settle into it is an ongoing process. As we settle more and more, we can begin to recognize and become familiar with the parts of ourselves that we've rejected in the past. And we can also see the more subtle places we continue to resist within ourselves, hidden in the deeper crevices of our mind. Maybe it's how we judge ourselves, how we just tolerate uncomfortable feelings, and how we begin bargaining with ourselves. If I can be with this for a certain amount of time, maybe it'll go away sooner. I don't know if that's familiar to you, but that kind of thinking is very familiar in my own mind. So just being able to recognize that. It's an ongoing process to see all these games our minds play and embrace all of it despite the games. And we can always relax more, quiet more, settle more, become more comfortable with who we really are, foibles and all, when we're not trying to be something else. Then we can begin to see the holding environment as a portal. We're able to find more peace within ourselves, like it's our home, like all of us belongs here. And the rest of the practice begins to reveal itself. Our minds quiet and they become clearer when there's less struggle and resistance. And our hearts grow as we recognize our own humanness. And we're more able to see the way things really are. And in that way, the holding environment is a portal to the rest of our practice. And it's transformational. And it is within reach for all of us. For those of us who were on the daily sit last week, during the Q&A, someone shared an experience that I found really brought this to life. We had a pretty small group, so I think it's worth bringing it up again so others can benefit from the insight and learning this person offered. It really was a comment about how she was working with very strong feelings of shame and how painful it was, how it really riled her up, how her mind was trying to rationalize and resist the feelings, and how it was familiar to her. So she was trying to find different ways to work with it. And finally, at what sounded like wit's end, she took a walk and began to have a conversation with the shame, asking it what it wanted or needed. And the voice speaking to her said, "Love me too. Love me, the shame too." And this kind of stopped the woman in her tracks, both surprising her and feeling just right. I think we can relate. I know I can. in those moments when we're able to cut through all of the mind's noise, we know that voice is true. Excuse me. We have such wisdom inside ourselves if we can listen. If we can create a holding environment where all is welcome and we're not resisting. Look what arises. To me, it's such a beautiful example of a holding environment this woman offered. And it was an invitation to rest in that place of care and warmth. So, as I thought about this after we got off the daily sit, this woman sharing reminded me of just a piece of a poem that one of my teachers often shared. And he said it so often that it actually found a place in my mind and my heart. And it's a larger poem. It's a piece of a larger poem by Galway Connell that says, sometimes it's necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow and retell it in words and in touch. It is lovely until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. I think Connell is pointing to the holding environment and describing how it is transformational, how reteaching ourselves our own loveliness, including all the painful parts, it allows us to flower from within with self-blessing. And self-blessing is not a word we use very often. Maybe self-care, nurturing, or just care makes more sense to you. But what I appreciate is how it confirms that the care comes from within and that we can blossom when we hold ourselves in this way. And this is what the woman at the Daily Sit was able to do for herself as she created a holding environment that could hold and care for her shame. It's such a beautiful example for all of us. And the possibility is within each of us. So I want to finish. I'm going to read the entire poem that I referred to. It's about teaching a sow, a female pig, its own loveliness so that it can fully be a sow. It can come home to itself and rest in itself, teaching us that even the most common creature can benefit from knowing itself and flowering from within with self-blessing. It's called St. Francis and the Sow. The bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow and retell it in words and in touch, it is lovely, until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. As St. Francis put his hand on the creased forehead of the sow and told her in words and in touch, blessing of earth on the sow. And the sow began remembering all down her thick length, from the earthen snout all the way through the fodder and slops to the spiritual curl of the tail, from the hard spininess spiked out from the spine, down through the great broken heart to the sheer blue milken dreaminess spurting and shuddering from the 14 teats into the 14 mouths, sucking and blowing beneath them. The long, perfect loveliness of sow. Thank you all for your attention. And now we can transition to our practice. And as we always do, first bringing our attention to these bodies of ours, whatever condition they're in, and offering them whatever they may need in order to open up, release tension, awaken a little bit, maybe energize a little bit. And taking a few moments to just explore for yourself the really obvious places, but also maybe the slightly hidden spots of your body that might just want some attention. For me, it's frequently my jaw, my eyes, my neck. Taking as much time as you need, and when it feels complete, coming into a posture of relative stillness. Letting your body settle in this place, feeling its weightiness. And letting your whole self relax into this. As if this is your home. Perhaps as your attention comes to your breath, maybe a few slightly deeper breaths than usual. Letting yourself really relax into the exhale. And remembering as we continue the practice that we don't have to move away from just this, from just the relaxing of our bodies. Our minds will quite naturally slow down a bit as our body unwinds. And we can encourage that by letting our mind rest on our breath or on body sensations. Finding an interest in that, an interest in just what is going on internally in this moment. And maintaining an open, allowing, and warm sense of space inside. As we observe our experience moment to moment. And if the mind is wandering, notice that as much as possible, or offer an invitation to bring the mind back to the moment without being reactive. It's just the nature of the mind, and no need to add the frustration or the judgment. Entice it back with interest in what's happening right now.